Welcome to The Writer's Life with Stephen Leake. I'm Stephen. Today we're going to talk about Henry Miller and Tropic of Cancer, which is my number one favorite book and was the inspiration for my whole deal and my time in Charleston, and was inspiration for what I was doing there. My best friend Rob McFarland is a writer himself, and Gethsemane, my work in progress, is about our life and times in Charleston, in the same vein as what the Henry Miller and his merry band of misfits were doing in Paris in the 1930s. And there was a very specific reason why I never went to LA or New York City and to the art scenes there. I wanted to develop and be a part of an artistic community in my native South, because I think it's more important than just chasing some ghost about art. It's more important to develop your own culture and be a part of your own culture and develop its artistic heritage. And I think the South is a very unique history, it's something unique to give to the world, and we are just as intelligent and sophisticated, if not more so, than the coastal elites. Henry Miller, interesting guy. He began his artistic life and began writing very late in life, at around 33. And he kind of just all of a sudden had this epiphany while he was working a menial job in New York with a wife that didn't really love him, a passionless life, that he was stuck in kind of a rut. And he got a wild hair up his ass and just moved to Paris, divorced his wife, moved to Paris, and started over, which I'm all about. If you're stuck in some life you hate, do not be afraid. Just start over and do something different. I've had to reinvent myself many times, and I'm only 38, about to turn 39. There's a quote, and I forget by who. It says something to the effect of, "It's never too late. It's never too late to go after the life you want." Something. I'll have to look it up. But life is a precious thing, and you should never be wasting it in a life you hate, doing menial hard shit for shitty pay. I did it because I was doing a research and trying to get to the bottom of what was going on and what's happening in the service industry. I have good things to say about it. Restaurants are a way for people with no other marketable skills to learn skills and to have a livelihood by showing up every day and working hard. And it's a very good deal for immigrants and young people. But it has its own problems, like any industry. It can be exploitative. And if you are a hard worker, you have to stand up for yourself in the restaurant industry, or you get used. They will give you as many hours as you can fucking handle. You have to be able to say no sometimes. And if you have a lot of disabled people, a lot of disabled veterans, and people who are retired, who just need supplemental income, work in restaurants, and they have special needs. They can't work too many hours or have some. You can find an independent owner that will work with you. I'm very lucky that I have people in my hometown at the Garden Cafe who were willing to work with me in my schedule. It's not something I was able to do forever, because I am disabled and my sleeping schedule gets fucked up, and they're running a business. It's not really their fault. They had to let me go because I was not functioning. But I appreciate them and Miss James for giving me the opportunity. And I was there for almost 2 years. It was a good experience. And we'll go back if they'll have me later on when I'm not when I get my shit together and my schedule is back on track. But for now, I'm working on my creative stuff. And, the restaurant industry, there are a lot of artists and writers and musicians and stuff like that who work jobs in the restaurant industry. There's a guy who trained me on Dish when I was first starting off, Jay, who was kind of a similar guy to me. He was a grunge dude, a rocker, who worked in red chucks and band t-shirts with long hair and bandanas and shit. And we would jam, we would blast grunge and Alice in Chains and shit, and just work our asses off in the back of house. And it was the most fun I've ever had working. You find some pretty amazing people in those industries. And I always say, if you have the choice, work for an independent owner. It's a much better deal. Not everybody gets the option to, but it's a better deal. Now, speaking of Henry Miller, he kind of just showed up in Paris, not knowing a soul, and through being gregarious in bars, met Anais Nin, who would become his muse and would become his benefactor. She was from an upper middle class family and kind of gave him money and food when he didn't have any other means to support himself. It was kind of what happened with me and Amanda Zbella in Charleston. There's very distinct parallels between his Henry Miller story with Anais Nin and my story in Charleston with Amanda Zbella. She passed away in May of 2023 from alcoholism. And alcohol was very much part of our life there and our existence. It was just a fact of life. Alcohol is not my drug of choice. I drink because I like to go out and have fun. But my drug of choice was opiates. And I'm still taking methadone and doing medically assisted treatment for opiate addiction, which, like I've said before, affects millions of Americans as a result, not of personal moral failure, but it's because of a action by a hostile foreign government. It's an act of war by China, and it's something we need to talk openly and honestly about in this country. And Kash Patel at the FBI and the federal government under the Trump administration is making distinct moves to counter this hostile act by a foreign power. And the DEA and the federal government needs to do something about this. And I am fully under the opinion that the best way to go about combating drugs is to decriminalize it at the very least, personal drug use. That's how we have operated as a country for a couple hundred years before this prohibition shit. All federal prohibition does is push everything underground into the black market and make it dangerous when people are just trying to not suffer and feel good. That should not be a crime. It was a crime to just exist in the state of addiction. It was criminalized in the 50s. And what William Burroughs had to deal with was existing as a criminal for just being addicted to drugs. It's not so bad these days, but it's still a dangerous thing to be a drug addict, and you should avoid it at all costs if possible. However, William Burroughs once said, drugs are a way for some people to escape a horrific fate, and I agree with that. I'm a libertarian, and I think it's 100% a personal choice. If you want to do drugs, you should be able to. money is going to be made off of it regardless. And throughout history, governments in power have monopolized alcohol production and drug production, and criminalized regular citizens from producing it themselves as an act of power. In Russia, only the Tsar was allowed to make vodka, and that's how the royal family in Russia made their money. And this is done in our Wall Street, and the East Coast elites and our Ivy League institutions all made their initial money off of the slave trade and opium. It's just a fact, and it needs to be a history that's known and taught. Power uses biological necessity and addiction to perpetuate itself. Power will always be involved in anything addictive or dangerous. And that's just the nature of the beast and the nature of the system. And it's something that Henry Miller talks about in Tropic of Cancer, which is his main work, but also Quiet Days and Cliche, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce that other than by reading it. This is a comfortable, cozy read. It's about Henry Miller being penniless in a Paris provincial town, in a French provincial town, and with a male roommate getting into trouble, banging chicks. That's what it's all about, isn't it? I'm just kidding. But that's part of the life that he lived, that Henry Miller lived in France. Getting back to the Muse, okay? Having a muse is a very rewarding thing. And with Amanda and me, it's an intellectual companionship. It's having an intellectual soulmate, a sexual soulmate, and developing a sexual intellectual dynamic, a psychosexual dynamic, and exploring each other and exploring a transcendence of self through another person. It involves insane levels of trust. It's the most fun I've ever had in my life, getting to rampage all over Charleston with resources and going out and whining and dining and shit. But while I was doing that, I was also working as a dishwasher, working 3 jobs in Charleston to be able to go and afford to do all that, while at the same time having Amanda's means. Because I know I would never feel right about just leeching off of somebody else's money if I wasn't also contributing something and working my ass off towards it. She was my benefactor and my muse, and what I provided her was physical protection. When we were going out, when I first met her, she was drinking in bars late night by herself. With me, she was doing it in a safe way, and I was looking out for her. I would carry her home when she had too much to drink, and offered her an umbrella of protection while operating in a big, medium-sized city that can be dangerous for women to do by themselves. We were good timers, and I'm not going to deny that. But, those good things can become punishments if they're at a certain point. They become punishments, and they become chains. And the thing about addiction is you don't really feel it until it's too late. You're not gonna, while you're kind of flirting with it at the beginning, it's seductive. And you're having too much fun, living in the moment, and you wake up one day and you're like, hey, I don't really feel like doing anything today. I don't want to drink today. I don't want to pop this pill today. I don't want to shoot this up today. And you don't do it, and then you feel like shit and go into withdrawals, and it's got your ass. And then you have to deal with it the rest of your life. And it's a trick that power uses. Powerful systems will always use addictive chemicals with phones. Silicon Valley, they will hack our biology and use it against us. And there needs to be laws to protect consumers from social media that is specifically designed to be dangerous and addictive. Cigarettes are heavily regulated industry, and social media and phones and technology are even more addictive than that, than cigarettes, and they're completely unregulated almost. But we have to be careful not to. If we make social media a public service, that will only guarantee them a revenue. So we have to regulate them in a way that doesn't enable them to do whatever they want. Okay. I need to stamp these books. These are going to be, I got 2 stamps that my sister got me for my birthday. My 39th birthday is coming up in a couple weeks, May 22nd. She got me a Monarch Literary stamp and then a Stephen Leake Personal Library stamp. And I've done a lot with Monarch Literary past few days, so I'm going to put, these are my personal favorites books and what I've molded my own career off. So they're going to get my personal stamp. Henry Miller, Quiet Days and Cliché. My sister knows me very well, and I've said this in a previous video. My family is probably the greatest thing in my life, more than my own talent. They provided me with this place, with this space to make music and live and do what I want, basically. But they've supported me because I work hard at it. I don't just fuck around for the sake of, not for just so I don't have to do anything real. I do this. I have discipline, and I go about it like it's a job. I have fun doing it, but I still am disciplined. Quiet Days and Cliché. Henry Miller, awesome, good, relaxing reading, but also has literary relevance. Tropic of Cancer, the main inspiration for Gethsemane. It is the language that Miller uses is kind of a wild romp, and I use those words a lot, but it's true. Okay. Let's do that again. That was a little. Oh, it's okay. I am auctioning this off. This is the first draft of Gethsemane. It has a title, Closer to the Sun, which was the title I was using while I was working on it. I signed this, and I'm going to put it up on eBay. It may or may not be worth a lot of money one day, and you can have it. I'm trying to raise money to get some dental work done, and I'm not gonna just go to Kickstarter and beg for money online. I'll offer you something for your money, something you can hold in your hands, and also support me in my life and my work. You can always go to stephenleake.com and contact me, and I will. And if you want to help me, I will send you a signed copy of whatever you are into, whether it's my vinyl albums or one of my poetry collections. just shoot me a text through my website, and let's collaborate and work on good stuff and brainstorm ideas and make money together. Okay? If you have a business that is freedom oriented, is something I would like, I'm totally down to promote your shit on my podcast. I'm not like, but it has to be like, have an actual legitimate use and be good for the society, or I don't just promote random shit. But speaking of promotion, the tools I personally work with: Skillcraft, U.S. government pens, used in the corridors of power to draft legislation, and also by feds and stuff. It's also a good quality pen and an affordable price. And it's if you buy these, I sell this on my website. If you buy these, it goes to support. They're made by blind people in North Carolina. If you buy this, it supports a good cause. Moleskin, used by Hemingway and Van Gogh and a lot of other writers and artists, including myself. I use the soft cover, lined. I've been using it for years. I love having it. This is always in my back pocket. Mitsubishi Japanese pencils. They have a cool box. And if you can see that, this is their Japanese product. I ripped the box by being an overzealous jackass. But I collect stuff like this. So does my dad. He's the one who put me on to Mitsubishi. And I also use this whenever I'm using pencils to write. Okay. Under the Roofs of Paris. I went to Paris with Rob McFarlane, who was my best friend and goes on adventures with me. He dated my sister for years and years. He's like a little brother to me. He's also a writer himself. I like to think I had something to do with that. He's good too. We had a grand old time rampaging all over Europe. Being stupid, dumb Americans. Henry Miller, Under the Roofs of Paris. There's something about that city that attracts a certain mindset. And maybe it has to do with the gray, the color gray that Henry Miller talks about. That's used in their building. It's specific to Paris. They're under siege right now in France by replacement migration from Muslims from war-torn countries. It's done on purpose, and the French are being sold out by their own governments. And Marine Le Pen is a populist in the vein of Trump that is trying to do something about it for the French people themselves. The French should not be having to accommodate the dregs of the third fucking world. They have a culture of their own and should not be forced to take on and change their very being just to accommodate refugees. We shouldn't have been bombing the shit out of the Middle East to begin with. We have all the oil we will ever need under our very feet on U.S. soil. We could be growing opium. We could be growing poppies and making our own medicine here in the United States, in the American South. Oil is a renewable process of the earth. We don't need to be going to war over it. It's not worth American lives. All we have to do is just take it out of the ground. And we could be growing poppies in the American South. And we do not need to be using opium production to control shit and topple governments and shit. it sounds sexy and cool, but like that shit's fucked up and evil and not cool at all. Let's see. I'm putting this on eBay. Like I've said, throw a bid in for it. If you like my shit, you know. My quote for Gethsemane is, "They slipped briskly into an intimacy from which they never recovered." And that's from F. Scott Fitzgerald, This Side of Paradise. That's very relevant to my life. I've always been about forming deep and intense, intimate bonds with women who are of that persuasion. It's hella fun and infinitely rewarding and fulfilling to me. You know, something you can do that regular people can do in their own lives. You know, people need to be having more sex. You need to not be watching so much porn. Have healthy relationships with your woman. Treat her with respect, and it will be a source of infinite and endless joy. Develop a healthy sexual dynamic. You can get into whatever weird shit you like with your partner, and I'm totally okay with that kind of shit. It's nobody else's business what you do in your bedroom with your partner. If it's consensual, go nuts. We are meant, God means for us to enjoy ourselves and develop strong bonds through sex. Back to a muse. I'm not really sure where this concept comes from. I think there's something beautiful and even sacred and spiritual in the communion of men and women together. I'm infinitely inspired by femininity and strong women. Amanda Zbella embodied so much of that feminine beauty, its feminine strength. She was all about food anthropology, and that's what she really wanted to do and never got a chance to do. If I ever make a shit ton of money for my books and shit, I'm going to have a scholarship for food anthropology in her name. And food can help us in the history and study of cultures. It can help us to get to a greater understanding of ourselves and learn about other cultures through their food. It's something in what Anthony Bourdain did was really helpful to society. It was also fun and cool and interesting. And it's what she wanted to do in an academic way. Amanda came from privilege, but she also worked with me on the line in a restaurant in Charleston. And I trained several white dudes, college-educated white dudes, who didn't last more than a day doing shit that Amanda just picked up like that. And I will never shut up about her strength and her hard work with me. Having a muse, being an artist, that dynamic. Like I've said, involves a very high level of trust, creating bonds that have to survive not only a normal existence, but publication and public scrutiny is a challenge. Henry Miller and their ilk in the 30s were all communists and had communist leanings. But I feel that if they were alive today and had the tools that I have of AI and the internet and stuff, they would not be communists in this day and age. Having capitalist tools of the internet and AI and stuff has allowed me to do so many cool projects that I would not have the opportunity to do under communism. And no self-respecting artist would disagree with that. The only people who disagree with me that are communists are in academia and rely on public money to exist. I exist in the private sector and make my own money. And the artists in academia rely on people like me who actually produce shit and make money for their existence. And they're free to talk shit about me all they want, but I'm in the trenches in the real world making money and producing stuff while I'm subsidizing their existence. And you know, part of the beauty of America is this idea that I may disagree with what you say, but I will fight to the death to defend your right to say it. And I'm all about that shit. The thing about conservatism and libertarianism, it's a new counterculture. It's all about winning in the marketplace of ideas. We're not going to force our way of thinking on you, but we're going to make a better argument for why our way of thinking and our values are better than collectivism. We will prove it to you through argument. We're not going to force it on you. And that's the best way to go about it. Communists and the socialists will force shit on you. If you fall under their thumb, they're going to use coercion to steamroll you. That's not how I operate. I do everything consensual. I'm going to make a better argument and convince you that it's in your best interest to fight for freedom and free speech, because it is. What we're seeing today is not necessarily capitalism. It's corporatism. And it happens when capitalists embrace communism and use communism to stamp out competition and collaborate with other huge organizations to crush their competition and monopolize shit. My family are small business owners and teachers and doctors, and we're all about actual real capitalism that benefits people, that benefits an individual. People should be able to benefit and profit from their own hard work. And corporatocracy, and this kind of, the word fascism is thrown around, but what it means, as defined by Mussolini himself, is a combination of public and private. It is making money. And we have a lot of that in America today. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like everything else is a double-edged sword that depends on how it's used. If public-private partnerships are done in an ethical way that promotes real capitalist values of competition and free markets, it will serve and benefit everybody. But if it's used to become a cartel, stamp out competition, it can be a bad thing. I drink Black Rifle coffee because it's owned and operated by veterans. And my support of veterans, which runs pretty deep in my being, it's not some like commercial gimmick. I had an appointment to West Point, but 2 weeks before shipping out to New York, I was diagnosed bipolar. And while that wasn't necessarily disqualifying from service, I do not personally feel comfortable leading people in life and death situations while not being 100%. So I found another way to serve and thought of myself as a cheerleader for America, in a way, through my art, music, and writing. I have a company, Monarch Holdings International, and one subsidiary of that company is called American Justice Enterprises Limited. And what that was created to do is take on the fight of veterans as they have been fucked over by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has allegedly been discriminating and fucking over veterans by foreclosing on their VA home loans in a way that goes against their contract with the government and is unethical business practice. And I am working with a guy as a former employee who was involved in this himself, and other veterans who've been affected by this. We're working on getting justice for these people. Veterans put their lives, their mind, and their bodies on the line for everybody else. And when they come home, they should not be fucked over by predatory businesses who are just making money off the fact that they deal with veterans. There are plenty of ways to fucking make money without screwing people over, especially people who sacrifice themselves for others. That shit pisses me off to no end, that you were going to victimize a very vulnerable population for just more money. It's just for more fucking money. And there are other ways to go about it than going after, in a predatory way, a population that is sacrificed for others, like I said. That's all I can really think of. Thanks for being with me today. You're listening to me rant. It's not for everybody. What I'm about and my books and my art and stuff, not everybody's going to like it or understand it. But it's not meant for everybody. It's meant for you if you like it. You never be ashamed to like what you like and love what your little heart loves. Life is hard enough to not feel bad about what we enjoy. We're here for a short time. Let's have fun. Let's have fun and make the world better for the people that come after us. Thanks for being here. This is The Writer's Life with Stephen Leake. Take care, and I'll see you next time.